Welcome to the GC BizCast, a collaboration of J. Whitney Bunting College of Business and Technology and the Department of Communication at Georgia College and State University. Here we discuss important topics with today's business leaders and educators. We're excited that you've joined us. The views expressed are the views of the individuals on the program and do not represent the views of Georgia College and State University. So let's get started.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of GC BizCast. My name is Aaliyah, and I'm joined with my co-host, Lillian. And today we are joined by Barry Wolfe, who's serving as the first executive in residence here at Georgia College. We're very excited to join into his incredible career journey and much more. And we're excited for this conversation, and thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Great. So to start off, as Leah mentioned, you're the executive in residence, our first executive in residence here at Georgia College, which sounds very interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about what the program entails and how your experience has been so far?
Well, the program, and again, I'm the first, so I'm figuring it out just as Nancy is. But basically the concept is to bring in someone from the outside with business, real world experience to not only try to teach, but also to try to develop relationship with students. Whereas if they have a question that they don't know who to ask, or they can't ask in class, it's an opportunity for them to get that information. I would imagine that there will be some mentor relationships that will develop, and it's just one more thing that Georgia College is doing to help prepare students for their next step.
Okay. Do you think it's bringing a positive impact to students and the business community?
You all would have to tell me. It seems that it's been well received. And so I really have not had any feedback yet, so I hope it has.
Okay. So given your time here, have you felt there's been any specific moments or experiences where you thought, hey, this is really making a big impact to either you or the students or the business environment?
I have had several students come and talk to me, and one young man came and talked to me on Monday, and he was going for an interview, and he was unsure and nervous about it, and I talked to him, and he came back today and said he had gotten the job, and that our conversation really helped him. So I told him that made my day. I helped someone.
Yeah, that must be a very good full circle moment.
Absolutely.
Where you can actually see the impact of the program working in real time. So
absolutely, and that's I had a long career, and a lot of people helped me along the way, and now that I have a lot of free time, I'd like to give back and help the next generation.
Yes, I love that, and I think I would love to be too in a position later on where I'm able to give, maybe not monetary, but as through my services to students. So I admire that and inspire a lot about you, and it's great. And the first day you're already making a very powerful impact for students.
Well, thank you so much. Obviously money's important, and I think they'll take every dollar you're willing to give. But there are other things that I wish that when I look back on my educational background, that I wish someone had told me, and it would have really it would have saved me a lot of heartache and mistakes. And I want to do that for other people so that they don't have to have the same trials and tribulations.
Yes, absolutely. So as this long-standing advisory board of the college, what drew you to get involved with Georgia College?
Well, when we moved here from Peachtree City, and I had been teaching at the Penn State World Campus online, and that's a wonderful experience. but in 10 years, I've never met any of my students, probably only talked to one or two on the phone. So it's, it's very impersonal. And I just decided, if I'm going to do this, I need to do it face-to-face. And we were at dinner one night at Reynolds, and I met someone who was connected with the business school, and I told him my desire, and they trusted me and let me have a class, and I guess it worked out because they invited me back.
Okay, that's great. And can you tell us about the classes that you taught here at Georgia?
Well, I taught 3 introduction to management classes, and then a human resources class.
And compared to your experience teaching online, you said you were teaching online for 10 years, comparing that to your experience teaching at Georgia College, what was the kind of difference there?
Well, again, you don't get that face-to-face experience. It's much harder to develop any kind of relationship with students I've always believed there's a lot of value to meeting someone, and because in business, for example, you'll talk to someone on the phone for years, and it's not until you meet them that it all kind of clicks. You see what they look like and that sort of thing. So obviously that is a difference. The other difference is in online teaching, there's basically an assignment every week. The students have to be self-motivated. And every week it's up to them to read the material and submit their paperwork. So some people it's not a good fit for because they aren't disciplined enough to keep up with all the assignments. Whereas if I'm in class with a student and they're having a problem, it's much easier to say, hey, what's going on? What can I help you with? So it's just a matter of, it's tougher to have personal relationships with your students when you're online.
Oh, yes, I absolutely agree, and I think that face-to-face interaction is very important, especially for students who like interactive learning rather than having that responsibility, especially younger students, incoming students, freshmen and sophomore students who are still getting accustomed to the college life and the responsibilities that come with. I think face-to-face classes are definitely more impactful to them than online classes are.
I definitely believe that the in-class face-to-face is the more desired opportunity. However, there's in some cases there's a real need for online. For example, I had several students that were on aircraft carriers or in Iraq. Sometimes, for example, there will be single mothers who really, can't take the time off to go back to school. And in those cases, it's really a godsend for those people. And my son, for example, was in the Air Force, and he knew several of his colleagues that got their MBA while they were serving in the military. So they got out and not only had the military experience, but were able to get their degree at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I relate. I got my associate's degree through the online platform, and it's great. It helped me a lot. At the time, I was a single mom, so I definitely relate to that. It's helpful, but it also depends on the student. How much work are you willing to put? How would you time management skills, it's one of the skills that you can learn from that. How do I handle my life, my child's life and school at the same time? It is a blessing in those situations. But if the opportunity arises for students, I also think that it's also beneficial for the in-person interaction.
Absolutely.
Yes, and with institutions like Georgia College, we are a bit smaller, and so we are allowed to have kind of a closer tie to our professors and all the other faculty. So how would you think Georgia College can kind of use this strength to improve how they teach students as they go into the business landscape? And also, how I know this program, the Business Executive in Residence program, is one of those, but are there other ways that you see them building on this?
Well, I want to say this, and I've said it repeatedly. Again, I'm a boomer, and, people probably get tired of hearing about when I was in school, but when I was in school, my college, as much as I enjoyed it, did nothing to prepare us for the next step. It was really, thank you, here's your diploma, and I hope that works out for you. I am so impressed with Georgia College with all the things they do to help prepare students for the next step. It seems to me that if a student leaves Georgia College without taking advantage of all those opportunities, they've really missed out, because it's really your last chance to practice those skills before you go to work, and people are not as forgiving when you're in the workplace as they are when you're in school.
That's very true. I know I was very surprised coming here, especially being in the business college. They really, or even specifically MIS, we have like etiquette dinners, we have networking events, all these things to kind of prepare us, which I really appreciated, because I know even other majors or other schools don't have those same opportunities. So that's something, as someone who's more kind of to their self, I really appreciated them pushing you out of your comfort zone and encouraging you to get everything you can out of this experience.
Well, for example, the elevator pitch competition.
Yes.
I think it's fabulous, and I served on the judging committee a couple times, and there are some students that come in and just kill it.
Yeah.
They're just wow. And then there are some students that come in and can barely speak, and I always like to say, go back out in the hall, take a breath, and we'll start over. And the more of that you can do now, the better off you'll be later on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think practice, repetition is key to build that confidence and killing a elevator pitch.
Well, some people, such as my wife, are just terrified of speaking in front of other people. I don't know if you can tell, but it really doesn't bother me. But you've got to get over that if you're going to have a successful career, because you will need to make presentations and you will need to talk to people. And again, if you can't, it will limit your career.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I mentioned to Leah earlier. Not sure this is the exact quote, but within the lines, it's that the inability to get out of your comfort zone kills success. Mm-hmm. And I think it's true with what you're saying as well. Okay. So to switch over a little bit and get a little bit more about your career, you had a unique role in labor relations and Dean's Foods, especially through a time of significant change. Can you share some of the key moments or decisions that shaped your career and how you navigated through them?
Well, I can go all the way back to when I graduated college. I still had no idea what I wanted to do, and I'm originally from West Virginia, which I truly love, but there were limited opportunities. So I started working in a job, and I had a friend who was in the industrial relations program at West Virginia University. And there's a graduate school in Charleston, West Virginia. He said, you should take this class with me. And I did, and one thing led to another, and somehow I found my niche. Well, I practiced law for 1 year. Well, I went to law school and I practiced law for 1 year, but that definitely was not for me. And I'm glad I did it, because otherwise, I would have seen some of my law school classmates, making a lot of money and that sort of, and I would have always thought, well, I should have done that. But after a year, I was like, I don't care. This is not for me. I started in corporate America sort of in human resources. But every place I went, they needed someone to negotiate the labor contracts and that sort of thing. A lot of people in human resources want nothing to do with that. It's dirty, it's stressful, it's not clean, and but every company I worked for, I'd say, hey, I'll do it, and over time, I slowly specialized in that. And so what my job was, when a company has a union, approximately every 3 years, you have to get together with the union and renegotiate the labor contract. You asked me about Dean Foods, and it was a crazy ride. It wasn't all pleasant. But Dean Foods is a milk company, and the milk industry is very brutal. You only make like a penny on every gallon you sell. Also, there were a lot of headwinds. For example, one thing that's changed in society is people don't eat breakfast at home anymore. Everybody used to eat a bowl of cereal for breakfast. So people don't eat breakfast at home anymore. Also, some of our customers decided to cut out the middleman, and Walmart, Publix, they opened their own dairies. So they went from being our largest customers to now our competitors. So it was very it was very stressful, and it's hard to explain. But in the dairy industry, every third year you're going to make a lot of money. Don't ask me to explain it. But everyone just lived for that third year, because then money was rolling in. Everybody got big bonuses and that sort of thing. However, we did go bankrupt, and that's the third bankruptcy that I've been through in my career. So it wasn't anything new. But they eventually broke up the company, and we were acquired by Dairy Farmers of America. But when you're acquired by another company, those people get to stay, and the people in the acquired company usually have to leave. So after about 6 or 7 months, they came to us and said, we're not going to need any of the human resources staff anymore. But it was perfect for me, because I was ready to go anyway. And I said, give me the paper right now, I'll sign it. And it's just funny how things are, because when my father retired after a 40-year career, they had a huge party. People brought gifts, testimonials. When I retired, December 31st I was employed, January 1st I was retired. Nobody really said anything, and it just, it's just over. So, that's kind of the way work is now. People don't stay very long, and you don't develop those relationships, and you have to be adaptable to any type of situation.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. A lot of background on Dean's Food. I'm sorry, Dean Foods. So we appreciate that insight. Now, how did you? I know you said it was great for you to get that paperwork, sign it, and move on. Did that have any effect on your finances, personal life, or getting back on track on your career?
Well, again, there was no getting back on my career, because I was done. And a lot of it was, I had the type of job where I had to travel to wherever the issue was. So I was constantly, on an airplane, going somewhere, and quite frankly, it took a real toll on my family and my marriage. Thank goodness my wife is very capable, but I look back on it and I don't know if I've done anything different, but I really missed a lot of my boys growing up. So when this happened, I looked at it as this is a second chance. This is a second chance to rebuild my relationships with my children, with my wife, and now I have the most beautiful granddaughter ever born, and I'm going to make sure that I don't make those same mistakes again. So you do what you have to do. People have to eat, and I did what I had to do. But if someone called me today and wanted me to come back and and start up again, I would tell them for no amount of money would I do that.
Yeah. I think it's very admirable you sharing your story and kind of also including your challenges and also your heights and lows, because a lot of times you don't hear about what challenges people went through, and you kind of just see like the perfect path they went through. And so I think it's really good to kind of be transparent and share that. It's very helpful.
Well, at one point I was working for a company called Corporate Express, and I was very successful, and but I was gone constantly. Mm-hmm. And we had a baby at home, and I would come home from a trip and be exhausted, and I just wanted to take the weekend off. Well, my wife had the baby all week. She wanted to hand off the baby, and it became a real conflict. And I did the unthinkable. I actually went to the company and said, I can't do it anymore. I either have to pick my family or this job, and I can't do it. And they were very gracious and, gave me a severance, which they didn't have to do, but I didn't have another job waiting. And, my advice to anybody is never do that. But it was at a point where I really felt like I had no choice.
To kind of circle back, I know you mentioned the contract negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
I know you mentioned how that's a very stressful role and not many people wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So with being in such a high-pressured role with negotiating contracts between probably two opposing sides, what kind of guiding principles did you use to help you accomplish that? And also, were there any experiences where it kind of made you change the approach you were taking in kind of
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
The traditional way of negotiating a labor contract is that you just grind it out for weeks and weeks and weeks until someone basically says enough. When I went to work for a company called Aramark, I had so many contracts to deal with. I had 45 contracts, and I was like, I can't grind them out like that, because I got to get this one done so I can get on to the next one. Mm-hmm. So I kind of developed a system. A lot of people, they can't believe it works, but basically because a lot of my relationships with the union personnel, I was able to, I did some things no one else ever does, and because of my relationships, they trusted me. And when I would tell them, this is what I can do. We consider as long as you want to, but at the end of the day, this is all I can do. My guiding principle was to always tell the truth. And I got the reputation on the other side that if Barry said it, it's what it is. And that's what helped me survive, because otherwise, if you lose your credibility, it's hard to get it back. So again, I always made sure that I told the truth as I knew it, and they knew I was telling the truth, and that's sort of what I based my career on.
Okay, so looking ahead, how do you envision the future of labor relations? Sorry. Looking ahead, how do you envision the future of labor relations, and particularly in industries facing automation and digitization and other rapid changes?
Well, that's a really good question. And, there was a time when I believe unions were the best thing that ever happened to this country. For all of us. I mean, we all benefited from it. Today, unions, it's an outdated model. There are laws to protect people that you don't have to pay extra for. Unions are really struggling. And it's funny when I talk to some of my classes and I mention unions, they kind of give me a blank stare. And the reason for that is two reasons. First of all, you all live in the South, and your generation just has not had much exposure. The unions are literally on life support. If less than 10% of the population is a member of a union, if you take government workers out of that equation, it's only about 6%. So they are really struggling, and so now they're having to, for example, the Teamsters were traditionally truck drivers. Well, at this point, they'll represent nurses, they'll represent baristas, they'll represent anybody that, that will pay them dues. Also, as companies begin to build plants in the South, for example, many of the car companies have built plants in the South, Volkswagen and some others. And also, for example, Amazon is building these huge warehouses. They've identified that has to be their next area of growth, because in the northern part of the country, they've gotten about all they can get. So the South is where they're going to have to focus their efforts. Whether they're going to survive long term, I don't know, but it's been a steady decline ever since I started 40 years ago. It's been steadily declining.
To kind of pick up on that question, if you were in like a company now, like the leader, how do you think you would kind of ease the employees' mind when they think about all the different, like she mentioned, automation, the rise of AI? How do you think you would ease their minds and what's coming in the future?
Well, that's a really good question, and it's one I'm glad I'm out and I don't have to deal with, because it's obvious to the employees that the more automation you have, the less people you need. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the union's priorities, is to protect as many people's jobs as they can. For example, the longshoremen are on strike in California. And one of their big issues is they want some sort of limit on automation. AI, I really don't know, but for example, when the writers went on strike, their big issue was, hey, AI can write a sitcom now. At some point you're not going to need us anymore. So it's really a critical issue. And again, I'm glad I'm not there to deal with it, because I hate to cost anybody a job. But it's all about the money. Make no mistake, all these decisions are about money. And if the company can save money by automating, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah. I know you mentioned earlier that your guiding principle was to always tell the truth. And so I think that would be necessary, like telling the truth. I could see how that would be kind of hard to balance like telling them the truth, but also making them feel like everything's going to be okay. Because it may not seem like that if you're telling them, hey, this might happen, but this could also happen. That could be positive.
And again, you can't hide it from employees.
Yeah.
And you can't, at least in my opinion, you can't go on record as saying, oh no, we'll never do that, because we might. It's a great question, and there are some dishonest people in the world that will try to tell employees, don't worry about it, when they know that they're working on automation. And they will tell employees that just to keep them calm and satisfied. And then one day people wake up and all of a sudden a robot's doing their job. For example, I always thought it was interesting whenever I would have to go to the airport, which was every week, and Delta introduced the self-ticketing machines. And at first they had, all of the ticket agents out there helping you to use the machines, and all I could think of was, these people know that they're just helping people to lose their job, because eventually all these people are going to go away. But somehow they pulled it off. So
this is kind of a advice question. So we know you've been a leader at various positions and you've been in some tough roles. And so we're kind of wondering what advice you'd give to people that are emerging leaders or people who may want to climb into that leadership position with kind of balancing business objectives but also keeping a positive work or company culture. So kind of like your leadership advice for that.
I think it all starts with a genuine it all starts with you genuinely care about your employees as human beings. You can't protect them from everything. And again, never ever, I can explain almost everything in this world by the money. And corporations are always going to be guided by money. But if you have a genuine concern about your employees and you're doing the best you can do and keeping them informed, and then that's the best you can do. Mm-hmm. And I did this for 40 years and I never lost a minute's sleep thinking that I had misled people or been less than honest. I felt like no one ever in my life came back and said, hey, you lied to us, you didn't tell us the truth. And it's hard to go through a whole career without somebody saying that. So all I would say is it's based on honesty and a genuine concern for your employees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the transparency in issues like this, it's very, very important. So there's no built-up tensions or animosity between the employee and employer.
Well, adults can handle bad news.
Absolutely.
They can handle bad news. Yeah. It's the not knowing that drives people crazy. And when they know something's happening, but nobody will tell them, that's when things go off the rail. But if you're very honest about it, and this is what we're going to be doing, and we'll try to find jobs for everyone, and maybe we can, as long as you let them know, then they can make other arrangements, and again, you can sleep at night.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned telling the truth and transparency, but even outside of a leadership role, even just like everyday or career advice, do you have any key lessons you learned that what you think would be especially helpful in today's business environment, especially for people entering the workforce?
Well, I did a whole leadership presentation, and I talked about the various things that a true leader should do. One of the things I stressed was there's a difference between a leader and a manager. And a leader, again, needs to be honest, needs to be concerned, needs to be flexible, needs to have vision, needs to take responsibility when things go bad. And being a leader is not easy. Being a manager is much
Easier.
isn't as hard as being a leader. And very few people actually are leaders. There's a lot of managers, there's a lot of people with titles, but they're not all leaders.
Thank you so much
Well, thank you for
for
having
joining us here today. We appreciate all your insights and all your experience, sharing all of that with us. Thank you so much to our students, our BizCast listeners, and I really hope you take a lot from the show, and we'll see you next time on BizCast.